So before we get into that part of the town hall, why don't we go ahead and continue in our art talk series. We're finishing up the 19th century with actually one of my favorite paintings. It's at the Phillips Art Gallery in Washington, D.C. It's the Luncheon of the Boating Party by Renoir. So we're moving into the Impressionistic period now. And it's actually an incredible painting. It's a very large painting. It's a prime example of Impressionism. It shows a richness of form and fluidity of brushstroke, and it has that that very signature look of Impressionistic art. So why don't we have Sarah talk to us a little bit about Renoir?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sarah.
I hope you all have had a good week. Yes, we are going to be focusing on Pierre-Auguste Renoir today. So Renoir was born in 1841 in Limoges, France. His father was a tailor of modest means and his mother was a seamstress. And in 1844, they moved to Paris to find more work. And the Renoirs lived right near a museum called the Louvre. So that obviously influenced Pierre-Auguste's childhood. Drawing always came naturally to him from a young age, but a lesser known fact was that he was actually a talented singer. He took music lessons at the church near his house and was encouraged by his teacher to pursue singing. But unfortunately, after a while, his family couldn't afford his music lessons and his singing career faded away. So to help his family financially, Renoir took an apprenticeship at a porcelain factory for a porcelain painter. And he often got bored with the subject matter at the porcelain factory, so he would roam through the halls of the Louvre in his free time. And in 1862, he began taking lessons with Charles Gleyre, I believe is how you pronounce it, who also taught Alfred Sisley and Claude Monet, among others. So he kind of joined in this group and became friends and colleagues with these other painters. So the first painting I would like to show, let's pull it up, is an earlier work of his, probably lesser known. This is a portrait of William Sisley, who was Alfred Sisley's wealthy father. This was painted in 1864. And this was one of the first entries that Renoir had at the Paris Salon. The main reason I show this painting is to show the contrast of Renoir's later, more famous works that we'll look at. In the beginning of his career, he was struggling to find work and often would rely on portrait commissions to make money. We can see, especially in the background of this painting, that the color is done with the small, quick brushstrokes reminiscent of Impressionism, and this technique will only become more apparent as we look through some more of his paintings. So this next one, as AJ mentioned, is Luncheon of the Boating Party. This was painted in 1881. And I really love this painting. It's one of those paintings that just makes you want to jump in and join the party. I guess, especially in a time when we can't really socialize in groups, this painting seems especially festive. The Phillips collection, which is where this painting is housed, says that, quote, the painting also reflects the changing character of French society in the mid to late 19th century. The restaurant welcomed customers of many classes, including businessmen, society women, artists, actresses, writers, critics, seamstresses, and shopgirls. This diverse group embodied a new, modern Parisian society. And this final painting is titled The Large Bathers. This was painted in 1887 and is housed at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's said that this work was in part inspired by the Raphael frescoes in Italy. Renoir did a whole series of nude women during this time, kind of the late 1800s. In his career, but he worked on this particular piece for almost 3 years until he was satisfied. There's a certain quality of smoothness to this painting that was actually heavily criticized for veering too far from classic Impressionism. When you look at the skin on the women, it's less of that kind of harsher brushstroke of Impressionism, and it definitely is more of like a smoother blended quality to the paint. So as I mentioned, it was heavily criticized, and Renoir decidedly said that he would never again spend that much time on one painting. Ultimately, Renoir developed rheumatoid arthritis in 1892, not too long after this painting was finished. And he was still able to paint, but he needed an assistant to actually put the paintbrush in his hands. Renoir was asked why he continued to paint while in such pain. And he said, quote, "The pain passes, but the beauty remains." So that concludes my presentation on Renoir, and I will see you all next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. That was wonderful. So that that visual impact of kind of the flickering light is just amazing with the Impressionistic artists. Some of you may kind of an interesting hypothesis that some have had about the Impressionists is that some of you may be aware of a incredible volcano explosion that occurred, I think, in 1883 at Krakatoa. There's actually a fantastic book about that. It was in Java and Indonesian islands. And that actually affected the atmosphere throughout the world for many years. And some people believe that actually that event itself, in terms of how it affected the atmosphere, contributed to that very signature look of Impressionistic art. You might also know that earlier this year, just I think about a month ago, there was an immense sandstorm in the Sahara Desert, which some folks also believe have globally affected the atmosphere in some similar ways. And so actually the Sahara Desert puts out, I think, something like 200 metric tons, a million metric tons of sand into the world's atmosphere every year. So a little known fact there. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you all.